Hey everyone, welcome back for a Thursday edition of Lunch Break Live. Thankfully, it is Thursday. We got one more day till we get to the weekend of week 6 of working from home, at least for us here at AL.com. And yesterday we had a lot of interesting news, but one thing that really stuck out for a lot of our readers was a story that our reporter Chris Harress had on a Mobile barbershop owner. Now, this barbershop owner gave an interview to Chris on video, which you can also find on our Facebook page or on AL.com. And he talked about some of his experiences of trying to reopen Tuesday, getting hit with a cease and desist letter and a fine, and then trying to reopen on Wednesday. So Chris was there yesterday on the scene and watched this whole thing unfold live. So Chris is here today to talk to us, explain what happened yesterday, and answer any questions some of y'all might have if you want to leave them in the comments. We will link Chris's story here in the comments, or I guess below, not above. And so y'all can click on it and read it later if you haven't yet. It's a great story. So Chris, tell us, first of all, thank you for taking some time. And first, tell us what it looked like on the ground.
Just to go back a little bit, I was kind of I was covering some businesses, keeping an eye on major businesses in Alabama, and then somebody sent me this link to the Barbershop page, and they'd opened the day before without much fanfare. They just kind of did it, and then it got a lot of traction, and so I saw it, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just go there for when they're going to open, because the guy that owns the place, Joel Edwards, also owns it with his dad, Mike Edwards. He was like, well, I got the cease and desist, which, that what they're saying is please don't open again. And I got the $500 fine, which is, a deterrent to actually not open again. And he said, well, I'm opening again because my life is going down the drain. I have to. And then, his reasoning was in two parts. One was I need to make the money, and I owe it to my fellow barbers that work beside me to make them money as well. But also the other side of it was, it was kind of to do with civil liberties, the Constitution, my rights, that kind of thing. So he had two different reasons. So I go out there, and bear in mind, I don't know what this guy looked like, and I've had a few barbers in my life, and this guy looked like, he was all fashionable. He was young. He was
very hip.
He was real hip, exactly, right? And it wasn't what I was expecting, and I also wasn't expecting him to be so sincere, and because he just came across really likable, and I felt really bad for what was happening to him. Anyway, he's got a bunch of people outside his business, and they're waiting to get their hair cut, and I start chatting to them, and they're booked up for the entire week, or they would have been. They start cutting a few people's hair. And one interesting thing just before he opened is a customer came in not to get his hair cut, just to hand him the $500 to pay the fine. He was like, here, take this. This is from me. And that guy didn't want to be known. He was like, I don't want my name out there. This is principle. This is the money, for covering his principled stand, that kind of thing. So that was a really interesting moment. And then Chief Barber turned up, or he's the Director of Public Safety for Mobile, but he used to be the Chief of Police. So he turns up.
So we have to make a quick note, because this confused some of us even in the newsroom yesterday. Chief Barber is not the barber. This is the Director of Public Safety. The barbershop owner is Joel Edwards and his father. But
that's right.
You said a little bit after they opened, the Director of Public Safety, James Barber, showed up, and what happened when he got on the scene?
So I've had a lot of encounters with James Barber, and he's a very reasonable, fair guy. And yesterday, he they broke the cease and desist order, right? They reopened. I was expecting a bunch of cops to come through the door. Maybe, Joel said he was happy to be arrested for his stand. And the only person that turned up was the Director of Public Safety by himself, and he was very pleasant. And he asked the media if they could leave, because by that point we were inside the barbershop. So we left, and we were outside for maybe in total about an hour and a half. And in that hour and a half, Joel came out to give a little statement about why he was doing this. And as I said before, some of the reasons, he he spent 10 years building this business, and within 1 month it can just fall apart. Now, I'm not a business owner, and you know, most people, I feel like most of my friends are not business owners, and I really didn't understand the kind of pressures that businesses were under, like really understand. I knew that it wasn't a great time, but I always thought, we'll make it through, right? But this was the first time that I really understood that there's a lot of heartache involved in this. I mean, that something that you built for 10 years is about to fall apart. It was really sad to see. And when James Barber later said that he felt that Joel and his barbershop were like the voice of America right now, I think he was probably right in that. I mean, you couldn't have found a more perfect business owner to kind of convey that message of like, this is really hard. He was likable. He was a young business owner. I mean, yeah, just a really nice guy.
I will throw on, if any of you have not read Chris's story or have not seen the video from yesterday, I will throw up a picture of Joel Edwards, and this is him. He is the barber in this photo on the, on the left. Sorry, I'm not real good at left and right, guys. But he's on the left, and he's wearing a blue shirt and a flag bandana around his face as a mask. Now, Chris, you said this photo was taken as a customer came in to get his hair done before the director of public safety showed up.
That's right.
Now, how many haircuts do you think that that Joel and his barbers did before they got shut down?
I think maybe they gave 3 or 4. And a guy that came out, I think his name was Shane. I asked him how much he paid for his haircut today, and he was like, the funny thing was, he said, I don't know. So I was like, well, how much you normally pay for your haircut here? And he was like, the going rate. And I think what was happening is they were just cutting their hair for free, because I think they knew they were about to be shut down. So they were just being like, it was, it was about showing people that they could do this safely. So I don't think they were about to charge people for it. They were like, come in and get your haircut, and we're going to prove that we can do this in a safe manner. The seats were more than 6 feet apart. There was gloves involved, all the different gloves, masks, everything was being disinfected. It did look like it would, I mean, if they're allowing people to go outside and be 6 feet apart, maybe they're going on bike rides or whatever, it seems like this controlled environment of a barbershop, it might be possible. And that's just my observation. I don't know if it's scientifically dangerous or not. I'm just saying from the guidelines that we've been given so far, it seemed reasonable.
Well, and I know that the director of public safety asked the reporters to step outside of the building while he talked with Mr. Edwards and the barbers. Do you know what was said in that hour and a half long conversation?
I know some of the details. They talked about, well, first of all, James Barber is in favor of businesses reopening. He's pro businesses reopening. He wants to get people back to work, or as he said when he was talking to us, he wants to get America back to work. So he might be
the director of public safety.
Yeah, he said he wants to get America back to work. So if he pops up in the presidential race now, but he wants them to take the antibody test and then any subsequent tests to make sure that they're safe to work. And then I think at that point he might be happy for them to go forward, because he said the last thing that he wants to do with the police department that he oversees is to criminalize acts that are normally just normal things for citizens. He doesn't want to be arresting citizens for doing things that are just normal parts of their lives. He said that would be the last thing he'd want to do. So he's trying to work out a safe way to get people back in what he called kind of phases. So they talked about that. But Joel was very adamant. He was like, no, when they're going to do the test, I need to work until the result comes back. And James Barber said, no, that's not going to be possible. And think about everything you risk losing if you continue to stay open, because as James Barber said, they're going to put a padlock on the door. There's going to be court procedures, and this thing might lift, and the padlock will still be on their door, and they'll still be going through court. So I think what the conversation they had was, if you stay open, it's going to be worse for you in the long term. And then later on Facebook, Joel wrote something about, he said, I was risking my dad's worked his whole life so he could have a quiet life. He's got, mortgages, he's got his car notes, and I risk destroying all that through this stand. So I think Joel in the end was like, okay, we're going to close and we're going to hopefully get through this intact. And maybe they're hoping May 1st is when they can legally open again.
And we don't know that yet. We haven't got anything from the governor about reopening.
Right.
But I think it's important to note that you said that the director of public safety, James Barber, he came in. He didn't come in blazing with officers and everything and shutting them down. He came in and had a conversation and told them that it was going to probably hurt their business in the long run if they opened because of fines and things like that.
Yeah.
And that is that's an interesting way to do this. It's an interesting way to keep everybody's emotions in, just factor in those emotions, because obviously Mr. Edwards was very emotional, and I'm sure his employees were as well.
Yeah.
And the people who were out there wanting to support the business, granted it's a haircut, but they were out there probably for more support even than just getting a haircut. I think what's really interesting is something that you said about Joel Edwards saying he wanted to take an antibody test so he could get back to work. And that was really interesting. Him saying, look, it seemed as if he was saying, I'll do anything that I have to do to open my business again. I don't want to break the law. And one of the quotes that you got in that interview is he said that he wasn't an outlaw. And he doesn't want to be doing the wrong thing, but he also is saying, look, this is a business I have built and I need to get it back on the ground.
Yeah. Well, I think through the conversations I was having with him at the time and other people, I mean, the desperation will make you do a lot of things. I mean, it makes you take risks, right? And I think this is one of the risks that Joel thinks that is best for him and his family and his business. And on the other hand, there are risks to the public. But when I spoke to some of the people that were going in to get their haircut, one man in particular, he said, I'm not worried about myself. Like, I'm coming in here willingly, right? And I think, that's one of those classic American things, whereas like you have the choice, right? If you don't want to go into this barbershop where you might get sick, well, you don't need to go. And that's just what I gathered at the time. That's certainly not my opinion. And it, and those people that were out there, it didn't need to be a barbershop. It could have been anything, but there's something really, a barbershop is like it's a pillar of like society, and like those things aren't going away. Those are always going to be there, and those are important places in the community. So I think it was like, in an iconic way, it was a good business to choose to make the stand.
Right.
For those reasons.
Right. And looking at some of these comments, just clarifying, we're saying that these are the things that Mr. Edwards believes and his shop believes about reopening and their safety. This doesn't reflect our opinions or our organization's opinions, but we just are trying to tell everybody what it was like out there, what we were seeing on the ground, or what Chris was seeing on the ground. I was not there. I am not in Mobile. But another interesting comment I saw, and I'm trying to scroll through and find who said it, but there are several, I cannot find the name of who said it, but there are several barbershops that I have seen, or just hair salons, that are doing different things to try to keep their business afloat, including buying gift cards and doing the prepaid haircuts. And I know that my salon was doing that here in Birmingham. Is that something that Joel talked about? Is that something that Mike's Barbershop is trying to do? Or what are they trying to do to bring in money in this time where I know they're struggling?
Well, I did ask him about ways that he could bring in money, about innovative ways that we've seen lots of businesses do. Gift cards wasn't anything that we talked about. It wasn't something he mentioned. I said, can you be going to people's homes and things like that? And he said, well, here's the thing. I probably could do that, and I wouldn't be in breach of the law, and people can invite me into their home if they want. That's up to them, right? But he said, but let's just think about it. I can control the environment I'm in, right? I can keep it clean. I can have people going in and out. But if I go into someone's home, doesn't that strike you as more dangerous? So I'm paraphrasing what he said. He said, doesn't that strike you as more dangerous that you bring the stranger into your home who's been in many people's homes cutting hair, but that's legal for him to do that. So I understand. And yet he can't open his barbershop. So he saw there was a little hypocrisy in there about the rules. And so that was one thing we talked about. But no, he's not going to be doing that because he thinks it's more dangerous. He'd much prefer to get his barbershop open again. And in terms of any other like ways to bring in cash, he hasn't. We didn't talk about that, and it doesn't seem so. No.
Some of the people making comments, I know Sherry made a comment about it, and somebody else. They're talking about small businesses and how hard that is right now to operate. I don't own a business, but I can imagine it is really hard. I will have at least one, maybe more small business owners coming up on my show maybe next week. So keep an eye out for that, Sherry. And if you have any good questions, or if you are a business owner want to participate, let me know. This is an interesting question from Brenda. Do you know if the Barbershop, which is Mike's Barbershop in Mobile, had any plans to test their customers before they entered the store?
No, that wasn't mentioned. No one talked about that. But it's certainly, James Barber didn't mention it, and neither did Joel Edwards, the owner. But yeah, that would make sense that might be a good thing to do before they come in. But I think right now there's a question mark over how long these tests take. Are you going to have a medical professional right there on the spot to kind of make, a determination on whether you're sick or not? I don't know how feasible that is, but no, they didn't talk about having customers tested.
Everybody asking too about the video in the comments. That video is available on the AL.com Facebook page under the live section because it was a live video yesterday. You can also go to AL.com. The link to Chris's story is pinned in these comments, so you can click that and the link will be available at the top of the post and you can watch it there. Chris, another question that some people have is, we can see in this photo, and I'll throw it back up on the screen if anybody joined late, but you can see that Joel is wearing a bandana type of fabric across his face. His customer's not wearing any sort of protection, but you can also see that Joel's wearing gloves. What was their plan if they were able to reopen yesterday to wear this PPE? Were they going to have these homemade masks? Did any of them have the more like the surgical masks or the N95s? What did that aspect of this look like?
Well, they certainly were wearing like homemade masks. There didn't appear to be any N95 masks. I don't think anybody asked about PPE, any of the media that were there. It was a very fast-moving, fluid situation. We were really just trying to get to the bottom of what was about to happen rather than the kind of details of how certainly if he was allowed to stay open, I think that would have been where we would have gone with that line of questioning. But no, there didn't seem to be a policy where anybody had to wear a mask to come in. And they were just taking their own precautions. But it did also seem like there was some of his customers weren't really concerned by this virus, and therefore, why would I wear a mask? That might be their, they seem to be on that side of it. So yeah, that if he had stayed open, I think that would have been an issue. Like, you need to supply masks to all your customers or something.
Right. And again, it's important to just throw it in there. We don't have any word from the governor when these businesses will be able to reopen. We don't have any of that information yet. I think we're expecting that next week. But right now, we don't have that. This is not really a question. This is a comment from Lucy. And I think that this is just kind of funny. Her question was about who was doing hair and makeup for everybody that's getting on camera. Lucy, I think that Chris and I know I'm doing my own hair and makeup. I don't have anything special. Chris is the same. And most local, just as a side note, most local TV reporters do their own hair and makeup, so they're not having somebody come in and do that. To answer your question about Governor Ivey or politicians giving interviews, I can't answer that. I just know for me, I'm in desperate probably need of a haircut, but I'm doing my own hair and makeup, and so is Chris. We're working on our tutorials here. And again, some more comments about just what things are going to look like when the governor does decide to reopen things regarding PPE, checking temperatures, having tests. And again, it's important to note that Joel Edwards, who is the part owner of Mike's Barbershop, said he's open to all of this. He just wants to get back to work. Is there anything important we've left off here, Chris, that you saw yesterday and you think's important to know?
One of just I mean, it's not small for this person, but the one of his fellow barbers, Justin Bouchard, he received some death threats on social media, and then a weird thing happened. Some threats against police officers were made to the Mobile Police Department in his name. And I think James Barber called him the night before and said, "Hey, we've received some threats from you about shooting any police officer that comes through the front door of the barbershop." And I spoke to this guy, Justin Bouchard, and he said, I used to be a police officer in the U.S. Army. I've applied to be part of the Mobile Police Department. I respect police. I'm not about to, make a threat like that. So that's actually an open investigation, I believe. James Barber told me that when anybody receives a threat like that, it becomes a police investigation. So that might be something to follow up on in the future, like who made that threat, and who made any of these threats. Apparently, there was a lot of action on social media that on Tuesday evening. People calling them irresponsible, but there was also a lot of support as well.
Well, and anybody, some people in the comments commenting about helping your stylist, helping your barbershop. Again, we don't have information if Mike's Barbershop was doing prepaid haircuts or gift cards, things like that, but it's worth giving them a ring and looking up their number and calling them. And I encourage you to do that with your own salon, whether that's Mike's Barbershop or somebody else. Giving them a call, seeing if you can buy a gift card or do any sort of prepaid service. A lot of places are doing that. So if you are looking for that in your salon, it's worth giving them a ring or checking out some of their social media pages or their web page. One quick question before I let you go. This is a good question from Stephanie Wilson. And I didn't think about this. She said, was he fined twice since he opened 2 days in a row? Because I know you said that they did get that $500 fine on Tuesday. So were they fined on Wednesday as well?
That's a good question. And I did think about that. And I later found out the answer is most likely no, because there wasn't a member of the Mobile Police Department there to write the citation. And I don't believe James Barber can. I don't believe he can write citations. I think he's an employee of the city, who's an appointed person. I don't think he's got those powers. So, I mean, that's just technical stuff. But like the way that the way that they interacted with each other, if suddenly the director of public safety pulled out a citation for $500, I think it would have ruined all the goodwill, and certainly he might not have closed the way he said he would. So I would say that was highly unlikely that he got another fine. Very unlikely. Yeah.
Got it. Well, again, if you want to know more, read Chris's story on AL.com or check out the video here on our Facebook page or in Chris's story. And we appreciate all of you for watching. We appreciate Chris taking his time to come on, and everybody else, we will see you tomorrow. It's going to be Friday, and that is definitely something to look forward to.